Hello, welcome to this week's video where we're going to talk about how to build a training program, specifically weights training program that works. We're focusing on the goal of building muscle, improving body composition and overall health and strength. So if you can't afford a program or if you're wanting to make your own, then follow along the guidance of this video and by the end you'll have a really good understanding of what is important and how to structure a training program accordingly so that you can get the best results possible. So we're going to cover your basic goals, the structure of a program, the types of exercises you would focus on, all about sets and reps and exercise selection, how long a program would go for, and lots more than that. So let's get into it. So first of all, you kind of want to get an understanding of logistically what you can do. So things like how many days a week can you train, how much time can you realistically spend at the gym, and what is your goal. So as I mentioned before, we're focusing on improving health, strength, resilience, and body composition and all of that good stuff. If your goal is performance for a 100-meter sprint, this is not quite the video for you. The reasons why you want to know exactly how long you can be in the gym for and how many days per week is because you will design your program around that. It's really important. So you don't want to make a 5-day program expecting you'll go to the gym for 1 hour, 5 days a week, when what you can really achieve is 3 times 45 minutes per week. Because if you structure something over 5 days like that and then you can't finish all 5 days in a week, it's not going to work optimally for you. So it's always better to be very honest and very realistic upfront with yourself about how often you can actually train. You can always increase it later. It's easier to increase it than it is to pull it back. So get really clear on that, your goal, your sessions per week, and the amount of time you can spend in a gym per session. Remembering that warming up, you've got to drive there, got to get changed maybe, all of those different things. So make sure you factor all of that in and work out exactly how much work time you have in the gym. So from there, we look at the structure based on that kind of balance. So if you were to go to the gym, say 1 day a week, you would do 1 full body day with the most important muscle groups covered. If you trained 2 days per week, you probably either do every single muscle group at least once, but you would mostly focus on the posterior chain, which we're going to get into in a little bit. If you went 3 days per week, you could either do 3 full body days if you're a beginner, or you might go upper body, upper body on rotation. So, week 1, you'll go upper, lower, upper, and week 2, you go lower, upper, lower. You just repeat those same 2 days over and over again on a bit of a rolling schedule. So if you only go twice, it's okay. If you go 4 times, then it's still okay. It works really well. If you go 4 days per week, you're typically more advanced at this point. So you would go 2 lower body and 2 upper body. And if you went 5 days per week, you would generally do 3 upper body and 2 lower body. It is very popular to do 3 lower and 2 upper, because you probably see all of your favorite, bikini pros and IFBB pros doing that to build huge glutes. But for a beginner or even an intermediate athlete, that is not an ideal structure because a lot of people aren't going to be able to recover from that kind of thing. So remember, if you're not on performance enhancing drugs and you're not an advanced athlete, then it's going to be highly unlikely that you can recover from training legs that often. So generally, my recommendation, 2 lower and 3 upper. So those are the different kind of structure balances that you can choose. If you want more information on how to build muscle as a woman, then check out the video on the screen, on one of those sides of the screen, after you watch this one. So now we want to look at the muscles that you want to train. So we generally have 10 muscle groups in the body. So we have the shoulders, chest, back, triceps, biceps, abs, and then in the lower body we have the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, and the calves. So you'll see a picture on the screen showing all of those muscle groups. So some of these muscle groups are much more important than others, and it depends on your goal. So for a man, he's probably more interested in training, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and chest, particularly arms and chest. And for women, we generally have a really high focus on training glutes and legs and this kind of thing. So my background as a coach is bodybuilding, so it's all about building a perfectly symmetrical female physique, and having big glutes is actually a highly functional thing to achieve. It's not so much the size, it's the strength and the capacity of your glutes, and this is going to actually make your training much better over time because your glutes kind of connect your upper and lower body together with your abs and help your body function as one big unit. Okay, so the most important muscle groups when focusing on all of the goals that we mentioned before, so looking good, feeling good, getting stronger, building resilience, are your glutes, your back, your abs in a structural sense, not your six-pack, and your hamstrings. And then second to that, we have your quads, your triceps, your shoulders and your chest. And then lastly, you would have your biceps and your calves, because for women, it's not really that important to have big biceps or big calves. And they're going to change the way that you look that much. So you might be able to see why it's important to prioritize certain muscle groups and also work out exactly how many times a week you're going to go to the gym. Because if you're only going to go twice, you wouldn't want to say build a program focused on chest and arms when you're a girl, if you want to grow your legs, for example. So, and especially for structural strength, what we call the posterior chain is very important. So that's that first group of muscles that I mentioned. So if you were designing a 2-day program, then you would have a lot of back, hamstrings, glutes, and abs in there, and you might sprinkle in some of the other muscles around that. So that's the structure, the muscle groups, and your general goals. Now we want to look at the different elements that make a successful training program. So a great training program combines 3 elements. It has priming exercises, a focus exercise or 2, and some accessory exercises. So priming exercises are those warm-up kind of ones. So it's just to get blood flow, nerve supply, and mind connection to these stabilizing muscles in the body. So it's kind of like how you would walk on the treadmill for a little bit to get blood throughout your whole body. If you're training legs, you want to get some blood flow into your glutes and your abs, just because this is going to stabilize your pelvis and make it easier for all the really big muscle groups to connect during your focus and your accessory exercises. And in your upper body, it kind of looks like your abs and your middle back. That's pretty important to get blood flow into, because it's going to help you stand up really straight and engage really great posture while you train your upper body. So they're not supposed to be hard, they are just blood flow exercises. Then next we have your focus exercise. So this is generally the main thing you want to focus on in this particular day of your program. So if you're a woman, that would be something like a squat, a deadlift, a hip thrust, a bench press, a barbell row, an overhead press, something like this. So a compound exercise that is quite challenging, that is actually going to tax like up to 40%, even more of your actual energy that you have available for that session. These are the big bang for your bucks, hard on your nervous system, strength building exercises that build strength in the whole body. So when I design programs, I generally include barbell squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, lunges, and then overhead press, bench press, and barbell row. They're kind of the main compound ones that I use as focus exercises. So if you do them properly, you're going to tax most of your energy for the session. You want to pick that one wisely based on your goals. And then following that, we have accessory exercises. So these are the kind of remaining exercises that don't require the entire body in order to get them right. So you might do something like a laying hamstring curl, a seated row, a lat pull down, bicep curls, tricep press, side raises, these kinds of things. So it's all the stuff that kind of helps those individual muscles get stronger, but don't tax the whole body and the whole nervous system. And you don't have to do as many exercises as you might think to train effectively. So, in my PT sessions, we do priming exercises. So we'll do generally 2 of those, and then we'll do like a deadlift or a squat or a bench press or a chin up, something like that. And then maybe 1 or 2 other exercises, and then the session's over. That person should not be able to do much more. They should be very tired by that point and not have much more capacity. So, but with my online clients, because there's not such a, hardcore focus on their technique in the compound movement. So generally they're going to have some sort of an energy leak somewhere, and they might be only using up 30% of their capacity instead of 60, because their technique is not perfect. Like, it might be close to perfect, but it's not perfect. And so that means they might have room for 4 or 5 more exercises after that. And then you've got other things to consider. Like, if you're focusing on bodybuilding and you're really hardcore into a diet, you're actually probably going to do more exercises which don't tax the nervous system, rather than a couple of really heavy lifting ones. So it always depends on your goals. It shifts and changes throughout. But those are the 3 things that you structure your program around: priming, focus, and accessories. So how do you choose your priming exercise? The muscles you want to sort here are postural, so glutes, abs, and back related. For some people, it might involve things like ankle mobility or shoulder mobility. But generally these things will be done outside of your session, but they can also be included. So say when you have that big stick and you're kind of rolling it over and forward, or you might do some mid rows just with a band for the upper body. You might do a couple of light lat pull downs. You might do some heel drops for your abs, or dead bugs or planks or something like that. And then for the lower body, it's something like a band walk to get the glute med activated. It might be some fire engines or hip abductions. It might be a single leg glute bridge, something like that, and abs. So it's just simple exercises to get the brain remembering that there are muscles in here that are very important to be engaged, that actually need to hold the body together. Because once you do that, then that means when you go on to the compound exercise, it's going to be a lot more effective. And if you skip over those, you will not have as an effective workout. Like, I can guarantee you that. Especially if you're sitting all day at a computer, or you've got tight muscles or anything like that. So let's look at choosing a focus exercise. So as I mentioned before, these are generally compound exercises, which means they use more than one joint at a time. So if an overhead press is using the shoulder joint and the elbow joint, whereas a bicep curl is just using the elbow joint. So this would be called an isolation exercise. It's generally going to be an accessory. An overhead press is generally a compound exercise that you'll probably use as a focus. In order to do these movements really well, you actually have to have the whole body engaged, which is why they do, when done properly, tax so much of your energy throughout a workout and give you the biggest results. So as a beginner, you might choose something like a dumbbell squat or a box squat. Lunge, just a static lunge, you don't even have to have weight. Like my beginners absolutely cannot perform lunges correctly, even with just their body weight. So you do not add weights until you get really good at certain exercises. A hip hinge movement, so maybe a stiff-legged deadlift or an RDL, or just your standard sort of incline leg press. So remember that when you're a beginner, you cannot barbell squat, deadlift, or anything like that because you won't have that mind-muscle connection. You want to spend a little bit of time building that first. But if you're intermediate, then your lower body exercises might look like a barbell squat, barbell deadlift, barbell hip thrust, or barbell lunge. And then for upper body, if you're a beginner, it might look like a dumbbell shoulder press, a chest press, a push-up on your knees, a mid-row or a lat pull-down or something like that. And if you're more advanced, it might look like a chin-up, a barbell overhead press, a barbell bench press, or a bent-over barbell row, or a rack pull or something like that. Okay, so that's the elements of a training program, your goals, the different muscles you can train, and how you might want to structure a program. So now let's look at balance based on time. So if you're going to go to the gym for 30 minutes or 45 or 60, obviously your program is going to look a lot different. For a 30-minute session, you can fit in priming exercises, non-negotiable, remember. Maybe one focus exercise and 1 to 2 accessory exercises. If you've got 45 minutes, you do your priming, 1 to 2 focus exercises and 1 to 2 accessories. Or if you've got a full hour, and I don't recommend training much longer than an hour. If you're training longer than that, you're probably on your phone too much and resting way too long. You can fit in your priming exercises, 1 or 2 focus exercises, and up to 3 or 6 accessories. So just remembering that the more advanced you get and the better you get at compound movements, the less accessories you're probably going to be able to do, because you're actually just going to be so good at squatting that you're only going to have 30% left at the end. And you might only fit in a bit of a lunge and a leg curl, and then you're cactus. So the better you get, the less exercises you need to do. Then we have sets, reps, and rest. So a rep is just 1 repetition. So if we're talking shoulder press, it's just this. Okay, and then a set is however many of those you do. So if you do a set of 10, then you're doing this 10 times. And then you have a rest. So that's how long you're going to rest after you've done this before you go again. And that is generally, so for an accessory exercise or a priming exercise, it's probably going to be about 45 seconds to a minute, maybe up to 90 seconds. But if it's a focus exercise, you might be resting up to 2 minutes. Like a really good powerlifter might do 1 rep or 2 reps and then wait like 5 to 10 minutes. So they have a lot more rest than they do work, but they're lifting such heavy loads that the body actually can't handle much more than that. So for beginners, you generally do about 8 to 12 reps on each exercise, depending on what it is. If you're learning how to deadlift, you're probably going to be able to do 3 before you burn out. But if you're doing things like rows and leg presses and stuff, you want to do 8 to 12 reps, and you do about 3 sets each exercise. If you're more advanced, you might do 3 to 5 repetitions on your focus exercise, and you might do up to 4 or 5 sets. And then somewhere between 6 and 12 repetitions for all of your accessory exercises. Okay, so that's goals, it's days per week, time per session, how to structure your program, how many days per week you want to go, how long you're going to go for, how long you rest for, and sets and reps and all of that good stuff. So now let's look at how you might build a program. So I'm just going to give you an example that you can kind of run off to kind of put it all into practice. So as an example, we're going to do 4 days per week for 45-50 minutes. That's sort of the structure we're going to go by. And since we're going 4 days a week, we can actually include all muscle groups. So we're going to focus first on back, glutes, hamstrings, which will include overall legs, and abs. They're our primary focus, so those first group of muscles that we want to prioritize as a woman, the posterior chain. And then we're going to add in some shoulders and biceps and triceps, just one of each of those. And so for upper body, we're going to have 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days. So it's going to go upper, lower, and that just means we can go in that order without worrying too much about which day it is that we go. Ideally, you would do 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days rest. So that's kind of the cycle you would want to go on. But if it gets jumbled, it doesn't really matter if you're alternating body parts. The first upper body for a priming exercise, we're just going to do some banded rows for say 2 sets of 15, and then we're going to do a plank. So 2 lots of 30 to 45 second holds. For the focus exercise, and this is an intermediate sort of program, so someone who's done maybe, let's say 5 to 6 plus months of weight training before, you're going to do barbell mid row and an incline dumbbell chest press. So they're the 2 main exercises that you want to put the most attention on. The first one being the barbell row, because that is the posterior chain back exercise, and the next one being the chest. And the accessories would be something like a low row, a dumbbell shoulder press, and a tricep push down. So the less important exercises that don't need all of your energy, that are quite simple to perform even when you're tired. So day 2 would be your first lower body day. And for warm up, you might do something like band walk or an abduction, and then a single leg deadlift or a single leg glute bridge. The focus exercise might be a barbell squat, a couple of sets of 5, then a barbell hip thrust, a couple of sets of say 6 to 8. And your accessories will be a laying or seated leg curl and a calf raise. So once again, you put the squats first because they're the hardest and most taxing. Then you put the barbell hip thrust because you're really only using your hip joint in that one. And then you're doing leg curl and calf raises, which don't require much effort if the squats have completely wiped you out. But you wouldn't want to do it the other way around, say, and do hamstrings and calves first and then try and squat, because your calves are going to be fatigued, your hamstrings are going to be fatigued, and you're not going to be able to squat very well. So this is the reason why you do it in this order. It's very important. So if we move on to the second upper body day, you do the same priming exercise as the other one, maybe a banded row and a plank or a dead bug or something like that for your abs. Then your focus exercise might be something like the chin-ups, the most taxing, the barbell overhead press, the second most taxing. Then you might do some push-ups, some dumbbell one-arm row, and some bicep curls. So again, going from most complex of all those movements to the least complex. And then the last lower body day, you might do the same warm-up as the other one, so single leg deadlift, dead bug, banded heel drop, plank, or a glute bridge on the floor. Today's focus exercise might be deadlifts, a barbell deadlift. This one is very taxing and does all of the posterior chain muscles, so really, really good for women. Then you might go leg press because you're not doing a pressing exercise yet, a leg curl again because hamstring is very important, and maybe some glute kickbacks or something like that. So notice we don't really focus on things like crunches, because for most women, like, the deeper abdominal muscles are actually dominated by your six pack and your hip flexors. So you actually really want to let those ones go. No more crunches, no more twisting and stuff like that, until you can build up the inside muscles better. It's your internal muscles that are actually supporting all of your weight training movements and your standing and all of that sort of thing. It's not your six pack abdominals and your obliques, really. Like, they're more for power based movements. So I never really prioritize abs. I only put them in there if somebody desperately feels like they need them. But once again, they go right on the end. So you might only have 5% or 10% capacity left. That goes into your abdominal exercise, but 60% of your capacity goes into your focus exercises. So let's just say you've built your whole program and you are about to run it through. All you do is just go to the gym, time it, make sure you stick to your rest times and your sets and reps, don't fluff around. Sometimes you can do opposite muscle groups without having to rest, so you might pick a bicep curl and a calf raise, for example, if they're on the same day, and just go back and forth between the two without resting. So that's going to make your time much more effective. And I always do priming exercises in a superset too. So you do a row, and then a plank, and then a row, and then a plank, ready to go. So it's only a few minutes. The biggest thing that people do wrong in the gym is get lost on their phone, because I see it all the time. My partner always makes this joke. He'll say, like, 1 set of leg press, 10 sets of phone. Because that's pretty much what we see in the gym these days. Nobody is actually training, they're just resting. So in order to get really good results in the gym, you don't really want big rest times. You really want to keep going and going. And if you, for a squat, for example, if you have done your full set of, say, 6 squats and you're resting and you said 5 minutes, you planned 5 minutes, but after 2.5, 3 minutes, you're actually ready to go again, just go again, So work out as you go how much rest you really need. But just understand, if you prematurely end your rest, you're not going to have as much capacity to lift well in that next set. And just one more note with your priming exercises, if you find it really hard to activate your abs and your glutes and stuff like that, then you're actually going to have to release them. So to fix this one, then watch my video on how to fix your knees and back and strengthen your glutes, which you'll see pop up on the screen. So lastly, we're nearly there. It's a long video actually. We want to talk about the length of your program. So this is a really big one. And another thing, people keep changing their workouts every week. You're not really supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a nice structured program that works perfectly for you, that's balanced well, and just repeat that for 8 to 16 weeks. I prefer a 12-week block for somebody on a program. 16's all right too, but usually you get a little bit bored after that and you might get a little bit lazy. 8 weeks is usually enough time. You know, you spend 1 or 2 weeks kind of adjusting to the program and getting used to all the exercises in the order you've structured them. Then you get about 6 weeks of just building strength. So that's always good. But if you think about it, if you do it for 12 weeks, you'd actually have 10 weeks of building strength on each of those exercises before you rejig it and create a new one. So yeah, 12 weeks is my recommendation. 8 weeks is what I do for most of my clients, just because people get bored, right? So it's still very effective. They still get a lot out of it, and it just ensures that you're refreshing everything. But any shorter than 8 weeks, I would say, my personal opinion, not worth it. Because how do you know where you're up to? So if you're just going in there and you're making stuff up, like I do that now, because I've trained for like 25 years on and off. I've trained for the most part of 25 years, and right now I'm actually not trying to do anything specific with my physique. I'm just going because I love going, you know, but I also know how to structure a weight training program effectively. So I'll go in there, I'll warm up, I'll do my priming exercises, I'll pick a compound, and then I'll do some accessories. So, you know, I kind of know what I'm doing, so I can shuffle it up. But if I was doing bodybuilding and I was really wanting to build a particular amount of strength or definition in my body, you know, or compete, like I said, then I would have a structured program. And that's exactly what I did when I competed a couple of years ago. You know, I definitely wouldn't be doing willy-nilly what I'm doing now. You know, so structure is key, because then you can see where you're improving and you can strive to get better every single week that you go. You know, so you do the program as long as you can kind of get away with it up to 16 weeks, and then by then you really need a new one. Then you just start that whole process all over again. You might want to continue on with your barbell squats. You might want to switch them out for, say, a front squat or something like that. It's up to you. Like, you just keep changing out your focus exercises and your accessories based on how you're feeling and how much and what it is that you're wanting to focus on in that next training block. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you build a training program that works. So if you give it a go, let me know, send me a message or comment below. I hope you build an amazing program, and stay tuned for future videos. Bye.